Hey, I'm at the R2 Block Party. I got to sit in the R2 and I had a chance to speak with Eric Glaser, the director of UX at Rivian, and I learned a lot of really cool stuff. So stay tuned because we'll be getting into all the nitty-gritty techie details. I'm Mike, this is Thunderbolt Auto, and you're watching my in-person pixel peeping of the Rivian R2. I dive deep into the tech and the autonomy of EVs, so if that's something that interests you, hit subscribe to see more of that. This one's gonna be a little bit less formal, just sitting here selfie mode in the back patio behind the Rivian space in Denver. Pretty cool place actually, first time I've been to this Rivian space. And I had a chance to sit in the R2, play with the knobs, play with the UX. It's all super cool. So I'll give you my overall general impressions of the R2, and I'll talk about some of the cool technical stuff that I actually learned when I was talking to Eric. He had some really cool insights and stuff that I haven't heard anyone talking about on the R2. So let's get into everything that I learned. Okay, so starting off with my impressions of the R2, honestly, I think this thing is going to sell like hotcakes. And not that this is a surprise, but it feels nice. For the price point, it feels really nice. Like honestly, coming from the R1, and I love my R1, it honestly feels just as premium. I mean, like there are certainly some cost cut things, some things that have been taken out of it that aren't, you know, the crazy cool features. But it still feels very premium. And the first one that no one is talking about is the door handles. It has the same electronic release that the R1 Gen 2 has, but the exterior door handles do not feel the same. They feel much more premium. And granted, these are just show models and they know that people are going to be touching them, but these models have been touched a whole bunch. They've been traveling around the country and they're going to continue to travel around the country. So, you know, they'll get a little bit of wear and tear naturally from that. But I can tell you, just from the initial handshake of pulling the door handle, night and day difference from the Gen 2. So big step up on that one. It still has the electronic releases on all four of the interior doors with the mechanical backup on the inside of the front doors. Getting into the vehicle, the interior actually felt quite nice as well. I personally love the light interiors. I have Ocean Coast on my R1S and I would probably go for the light interior as well on the R2. That said, the black interior actually is quite nice as well. And, you know, as much as I would love to see the light interior on launch, honestly, I wouldn't feel too gypped about the black one either. It feels pretty good. Everything's screwed together very nicely. And this is actually where I get into some of the interesting technical stuff that I learned from Eric. As far as pockets and storage, this actually has a lot more usable pockets and storage space than the R1S has, which is crazy because it's much smaller. You know, as far as raw cargo capacity, of course, the R1S has more. But this has two glove boxes. It has a slide-out drawer that is sized to fit a full Kleenex holder. It does not have sunglasses holders under the seats like the R1 has, but it does have sunglasses-sized pockets in each of the four doors, along with the full water bottle vertical holder in each of the doors as well. So that's pretty cool. And of course, the shining star of the interior is those haptic wheels on the steering wheel. They are very cool UX design. And like so many people have said before, it's really hard to convey over video how it feels. It feels like just very delicate, nice little clicks on it. It doesn't feel like a ka-chunk kind of click. They're very, you know, delicate, nice, very refined feeling kind of clicks on them. And it honestly feels like it has physical detents in it, even though it does not. It's just an infinitely scrolling wheel attached to a motor, and the motor just kind of gives you that feeling. And he actually gave me a little bit of insight as to how the wheels work, and it's really cool. So basically the way that these are set up is you can push them into the wheel, you can pull them back towards you, kind of like a paddle shifter, and you can scroll them as well as pushing left and right on them. So it has even an extra axis of control when compared to the R1. And Eric actually told me how they work, which is pretty cool. Essentially, you have a motor that is attached to the wheel, and even though they aren't set up to do this, technically speaking, they could make the wheels just spin on their own. They don't do that, but what they do use those motors for is to sense when you're rolling the wheel and to give you those little detent feelings. It also has two sensors that are sort of offset, one that's on the back upper corner and one on the right lower corner, so that when you're pushing directly in or you're pushing to the side, it can tell exactly push, pull, and which direction you're walking it. And so between those three different cleverly oriented pieces of tech, they're able to create this wheel that has so much controllability and feels so nice. I really hope they bring that to the R1 because it is a cool piece of UX. One of the big surprises that I actually learned talking with Eric is these touch sensors for the front trunk and the rear glass are actually not touch sensors like we thought they were. There's been some complaints with the R1 because it has a touch sensor to open the front charge port door, and there's been complaints of it getting triggered by water, or on the other side, the sensor just not working when the vehicle's wet and there's water all over the sensor. In contrast, the R2 actually has force sensors on this. So theoretically, it actually can't even get tripped by water. You actually have to push on it. And it doesn't require a lot of force, but it does measure how hard you're pushing on it. And the interesting thing about that is that means that they can actually tweak through over-the-air updates to make it more or less sensitive, things like that. So as it stands right now, you give a firm push on the back window to make it roll up or down, and you can push and hold on it to roll it part way up and then let go when you want it to stop. And for the most part, it works decently. If you've been watching coverage on the R2, you may have seen some people actually struggling with that back window in particular. So I suspect they're actually going to tweak that sensor to make it a little bit more sensitive so you don't have to push quite as hard. And the nice thing is because it's a software controlled component, they can just do it with an over-the-air update. And speaking of over-the-air updates, let's talk about the new software that's coming in R2. It's known as Rivian OS 2, and you may have seen some rumblings about it coming out for R1, which it will. And it's a really interesting design philosophy that actually had to do with it. The Rivian OS, as it's been up to this point, has been specifically made for the R1, which means it has to run on one specific set of screens, and that's it. When they were making the R2, they made the realization that they had to make this a lot more scalable. It has to be able to go across many vehicles and sizes across in the future. And so they want to make it a lot more like a web page, where as soon as you resize your browser window, it will automatically change the size of the components and rearrange things so that everything fits no matter what size you're on. One good example of that is the quick controls that come in on the R1. It comes in from the side and it basically just kind of covers up whatever's behind it. Whereas on OS 2, the design philosophy is that things will move out of the way when that comes up and over. And speaking of the screens in the R2, there's only two. We don't have a screen in the rear, which is a little bit of a bummer. And the screen sizes are a little bit smaller than the R1, but they are definitely higher resolution. And let me tell you, it felt buttery smooth. All of the animations were very smooth, no judder. It definitely feels like there's a new processor on the infotainment computer, and it really comes across here. One of the tweaks with OS 2 that no one has been talking about is actually the UI sounds. And I'm kind of a nerd for the UI sounds. This is not something that I have any expertise in, but I've always appreciated the UI sounds on the R1, how they're very clear, they get your attention, but they don't scare you. And Eric and his team are the ones behind that. So I chatted with him a little bit, and I actually learned that there's actually going to be some tweaks to the UI sounds for the R2 with OS 2. The first one is the turn signal sound. A lot of people actually really like the deep thunk of the turn signal on the R1, but it does tend to get lost in the noise, especially when you're on the freeway, and it gets a little bit hard to hear. Whereas those higher frequency sounds of the more traditional turn signal come across a little bit better in those high noise environments. And so they're going to be augmenting that same sound with a little bit more of a high-pitched component to it. So it's going to have the same DNA, but it will be a little bit more audible when you're in high noise environments like the freeway. Another one that they changed was the sound that happens when you try to lock the vehicle, but one of the doors is open. Or for example, if you have an R1S and you don't close the bottom lift gate before you try and close the top, it makes a sound that Eric described in a way that I thought was kind of funny. The clown horn is what he called it. Sort of the doo-doo, doo-doo. But this sound is another one that they're going to be changing to have a more modern feel to it that sort of fits in with the rest of the sound ecosystem, for example. So I thought that was a nice little detail. And I asked him if these are going to be backported to the R1 as well with OS 2, and he said that it's very likely that they will be backporting these sound changes. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention too that's really cool. So you know this button to close the rear hatch? Well, they moved it to the inside of the door. And the reason they did that is because they got some comments from people who own R1S who were camping and sleeping inside the vehicle. And they made the realization that when they camp inside, they wake up in the morning and they want to get out, they can't really open the back hatch to get out. So they have to do this awkward, like push the button to open the side door and kind of roll out the side door, and it's kind of an awkward thing. So they moved it to the inside, so that way, if you're in the vehicle, you can push that button to open it up and escape through the rear hatch when you're camping. Also, it's just a little bit easier to find and reach that button to close the rear hatch too. So cool detail. Also on the interior controls, I learned about the drive stalk. The drive stalk actually has a couple of knobs on it. And this is because autonomy controls are being moved from the steering wheel onto the drive stalk. And the thought behind that was that when you have it on the right side of the steering wheel, like it is in the R1 or like it is in Teslas, for example, those controls don't really get used when you're driving autonomously. If you're just driving manually, the right side of the steering wheel is just kind of dead weight. And so the solution to that was to move those controls onto the drive stalk, so then you get the right side of the steering wheel back to have more physical controls, where people want physical controls, for example, for climate control or things of that nature. And he did make sure to note that that right scroll wheel still can be used to control the speed of universal hands-free, but it just frees up all of the other controls and things that you can do with it when you're not in autonomous mode. So that's a nice little touch. Moving on to the rear of the vehicle, let's talk about that wiper. It's recessed and very well hidden, and that's a very interesting balancing act that they actually had to do to get it back there, because they have that rear drop glass. And what a lot of automakers do when they have that drop glass is they put the wiper up at the top and they hide it up there. But in this vehicle, they couldn't do that because they have a nice aerodynamic spoiler and shape that would interfere with the wiper. The other solution would be to just kind of like tack it onto the back and the metal part, and it would just look kind of ugly. So instead they recessed it and they have some nice drainage in there. And they were very aware of the freezing concerns and debris getting caught in there. So this motor is actually custom made by Rivian to have a little bit more power than a typical wiper motor is. So if there's water in there and it gets frozen, it actually has enough power to break free of the ice and start cleaning the window. So that's a pretty cool touch. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to note, the heat pump. They do have the air conditioning running in these vehicles. It's not hot outside today, but it is warm, and they do have the air conditioning running. And yes, there's certainly a lot of noise happening around, but I can tell you, these heat pumps are definitely quieter than the R1. I haven't even noticed them, and I've been listening for them. So definitely, you know, more to be seen on that one. They didn't have music playing earlier, and like I didn't even register that the fan was blowing on these things. So they've definitely addressed some noise with it. Again, we'll see how it performs in the real world, but already feels like an improvement. And the last thing I asked was about these little notches on the front and rear light bars. I asked him if there was ever an intent to put an RGB system on the front and rear light bars like on the R1. And it looks like it was just more of a design detail to make it match up with the R1 lineup. But it does not, nor does it seem it was ever intended to have those RGB light strips just as one of those cost-cutting measures. So it certainly is a cost-cut version of the R1. But overall, it does not feel cost cut. It feels like a very well put together vehicle. So overall, I'm really excited about the tech in the R2. It feels like the R2 has just a lot of refinements from what the team has learned over the years, and I cannot wait to see where they go with it as it launches and with the features that we might see trickle back to the R1. Until the next one. Thing right here. So right here, you got, it's a frog skunk because it's a frunk. And then somewhere up here, there's an owl. Oh, there's the owl up there because that's the cowl. So that's an owl cowl.